On today's episode of Let's Talk Drones, we are continuing our NDAA-compliant FPV build series, but not in the way that I wanted to. I made an oopsie poopsie when we were recording what was supposed to be today's video, and it has set us back. I'm going to share with you what happened. I'm going to share with you why it happened. I'm going to help you avoid making the same mistake that I did in this video while we figure out what we're going to do in terms of rescheduling the content and making sure we get this build series done in a reasonable amount of time. So without further ado, let's talk drones. What's up? It's Chris, the Drone Geek. Welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Drones. That's right, I messed up. I messed up, guys. I had a really rough day on Saturday. Like a really rough day. So I sat down to record what was supposed to be today's video, which is the integration of our flight controller and our receiver. And if you remember from our first video where we have our parts list, our receiver is the IRC Ghost 2.4 by ORQA, and our flight controller is the ORQA F405 3030 flight controller. So it was going to be an ORQA FPV heavy episode, which I was excited about because ORQA is a product or a company that I've used their products before. I really like them. They slide in really nicely for the typical Chinese components that I've used in the past, and you don't really see much of a difference in terms of how they integrate and also how they perform, which is the more important of the two, in my opinion. So I was really excited to share all this information. So I sat down, either Saturday or Friday or Saturday, it was one of those 2 days. I sat down, got all my stuff out in front of me. I had the drone with the ESC and the motors on, and everything went well those episodes. It was great. Went through, soldered the receiver, then plugged it into the flight controller, and that's when this happened. And then this is our moment of truth. Ooh, we had a little spark. Yikes. Uh-oh. That's no good. I can smell some, oh God, I hope this isn't, I hope I didn't just fry that flight controller. Yeah, if you didn't guess it already, when you plug something in on your FPV drone, you don't want there to be sparks flying out of it. That's typically a sign something went wrong. And in this case, it did. Now, lucky for me, or maybe unlucky, once you get the perspective on this, I had 3 NDAA compliant flight controllers, 2 from ORQA, identical F405 3030s, and then I also had the Rotor Riot Brave F7. So the first one burnt out, and I thought, well, that's kind of what FPV is sometimes. You get components from an OEM, and you don't really know what's happened to them in shipping. You don't know what happened to them on the manufacturing floor. You don't know about the materials that were used. Anything could happen. And it's one of those deals where it's not a common thing to get a component and have it like blow up in your face or short or fry or whatever, but it does happen from time to time. So I thought to myself, well, I'll reach out to ORQA and I'll be like, hey, I got 1 or 2 bad flight controllers, can you hook me up? Something like that. No big deal. I'm just gonna move on to the redundant F405 3030 that I had from ORQA, and we'll just see how that goes. I was not expecting what happened next, and I didn't record this. I should have, because content is content, but I plugged the next F405 into the ESC, and I plugged the battery in to power it on for the first time, and sure enough, it also popped and fried. So now I'm dejected because both of the ORQA flight controllers are dead, and there's nothing that I can do to salvage them. They're gone. They're gone forever. It's just the reality of it. So I'm sitting there and I'm contemplating to myself, okay, this is going to be a big change to the parts list, because even though a flight controller is largely a flight controller, we're going from an ORQA to a Rotor Riot. And I don't know how that's going to impact things. Probably not much, but we had been planning for the F405. But I thought it's a pivot we've got to make, because we can't spend time waiting for replacement parts to get in. And then this happened. This is the other NDAA compliant flight controller that I have. The Brave F7 flight controller, made in the USA by Rotor Riot. I haven't gotten this one out yet. So we've got a lot of componentry in here wire-wise. This is it. This is the last one. We're gonna go ahead and see. That one smoked too. Smoke also is not good when you plug things in when you're building an FPV drone. So now I'm sitting there and I'm like, what are we gonna do? Because this isn't good. So I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, okay, obviously we're gonna have to get more parts. And not just get more parts, now I'm gonna have to also figure out why these things keep frying, because I'm not just gonna keep plugging them in and hoping for the best. And so that's kind of what I ventured out to do. I reached out to both ORQA and Rotor Riot, and I was a little disappointed with Rotor Riot and their response. It is a $58 flight controller, which is not, it's not cheap compared to some of the other flight controllers out there out of the Chinese market, but it's also not expensive for a completely NDAA compliant flight controller. So as displeased as I was with Rotor Riot's response, it was a canned response, like telling me, oh, well, here's all the different reasons why it could have smoked. I know I have a ballpark of why it might have shorted out. Not in this case, but like I didn't need that education piece because it covered all the reasons that I would normally understand. What I needed is I needed a real person to reach out to me and say, hey, let's get you figured out. And I think I did, but it was, again, just more canned email responses. It might as well have been a bot. So it was disappointing. It was disappointing, the response I got. But I also reached out to ORQA. And ORQA gave me a much better experience when it comes to customer service and getting me set straight on what's going on. So I reached out to ORQA's customer service. I had a contact there, and he, immediately said, hey, really sorry this happened to you. This stinks. I sent him the video, the clip that you just watched, and he said, let's figure this out. I want to get a couple of my product experts in a chat with you so you can talk them through what you did, and then maybe they'll be able to piece together what you missed or what might be defective or what's going on. And so I said, this is great. This is awesome. Even if you don't replace the flight controllers, because you got to understand, guys, unless the component was bad already, defective already, OEMs of FPV parts are typically not going to replace those parts because they don't know what you did. It's not necessarily their fault that their component didn't work, because you might have wired something incorrectly, you might have configured something incorrectly. This is really rare that an FPV OEM would be offering this level of help. And I didn't expect them to replace any of the parts, but without even asking, before we got into the conversation about what happened, this contact from ORQA, who, again, I'm not paid by, I purchased all of these parts with my own money. I didn't receive these as a promotional piece or anything like that. Out of the goodness of their heart, not only are they going to replace both of the flight controllers for me at no cost, they're also going to send us the ESC that they have and their NDAA compliant FPV camera. So we can go ahead and throw away that note that I made at the first video where I was talking about we have to settle with a Chinese camera for now until a viable NDAA camera comes out. ORQA's hooking us up. So not only did they fulfill a customer service thing at the level that you would, not expect, but you would think, okay, that's fair. They went above and beyond to ensure that I had a positive experience building this drone. So all that said, I want to thank ORQA for being so Johnny on the spot with that. I also want to thank ORQA for the second part of this, which is walking me through what ended up being an oversight on my part. And I take full responsibility for this. I'm going to show you a few diagrams here. So first of all, we have our ORQA F405. You'll see this diagram shows you where each of those UART ports go in, those JST ports we've talked about in the past. You'll see where the wires go in each of those, what component gets wired into those ports. It tells you everything you need to know about how you wire your flight controller. Now, I'm going to go ahead and pop up on the screen the diagram for the ESC. Some of you that are a little bit more observant than others might already see something that looks a little bit off. If you don't see it, that's okay, because we're gonna walk through this and I'm gonna show you where I had an oversight that cost me these flight controllers and these components. Now, let's go ahead and enhance and look at just the ESC ports on the flight controller and the ESC. I just realized that the wiring for the ESC port on the flight controller diagram, everything's upside down. So let me go ahead and flip that right side up for you, okay? What do you notice here? What do you notice? If you don't see it yet, I'm gonna give you the answer. The answer is the pin output on the ESC was reversed from the flight controller. So when I plugged the flight controller into the ESC, the wires that go to the ground and the positive were reversed on the ESC output. So the ESC output, I accidentally put the positive to the positive, the positive to the ground and the ground to the positive, which is not what you want. That will immediately fry something. That's what I did. I didn't see that the wire or the pin output on the ESC was flipped from the flight controller, and that's what cost me the flight controller. If we did this correctly, this is what the wiring would have looked like. Yeah. So that's what happened. That's what happened. And that's why I wanted you to wait until you saw this video before you moved on with your build, because some of you might jump out ahead of me a little bit. I'm doing it week by week. That's sort of the decision I've made to sort of balance my schedule, my personal life, my work life, and then the Drone Geek. A week by week thing is, but you can absolutely jump out ahead if you want to. I just don't recommend it because we are working with components that I'm sort of walking you through here, but this is a prime example of what can happen sometimes when you don't pay attention to the fine details. And I'm guilty of that. I've been guilty of it before, and I was guilty of it here. It's a lesson that you have to learn sometimes multiple times, and unfortunately this one was sort of the hard way, but luckily ORQA came in to scoop me up and save the day, so it's not quite as bitter as it would have been if I would have just been left to have to purchase my own flight controllers. So yeah, pay attention to every little detail. The smallest wire, just the smallest wire can throw you off entirely. It can throw everything off, it can ruin components, it can ruin drone builds. It can actually be dangerous because if that spark would have been worse, it could have ignited and caught fire, and then we would have had a problem. But luckily it was just a little pop and it's gone. And you know, the flight controller's dead. So it really, for what I was destined to end up doing because I wasn't paying full attention to what I was doing, it didn't turn out all that bad. So, all of that said, ORQA is sending me that stuff. They are sending me all of that. I've got a confirmation. They sent a DHL tracking number to me. There was some export paperwork I had to fill out, so it did get delayed a little bit. I didn't get this right away out of the weekend because, I mean, again, to the ORQA team's credit, they were working with me on the weekend, like on Sunday. You know, we're talking like a day that usually nobody works, whether you're religious or not. They were on, you know, a messaging app, Signal, I think is what it was, were walking me through how to fix this or what happened anyway and how to avoid it next time. So to their credit, they really were Johnny on the spot with me. It's just there were a lot of moving parts to getting those parts to me, and you know, that's sort of what it is now. We're gonna go ahead and just as soon as I get those flight controllers, we'll get started on the video again and get the series moving. I haven't decided yet if I'm gonna take them up on their offer to use their ESC. I may stick with the TBS Lucid because now that I've got the issue figured out, we can sort of work around it. But there is a part of me that thinks, why did you flip your pin output? There's no standard, there's no industry standard for pin outputs, which is annoying. But I've never had that happen before. This was the first time I've ever had a pin output reversed. And I've mixed and matched flight controllers and ESCs. You know, I haven't bought them in stacks and just gone that way. I've mixed and matched things and never had this issue before. So yeah, just a little baffled by that. Yeah. Long story short, we will continue the series as soon as I get the flight controllers and the parts in. Thank you so much again to ORQA. If you really want to show them your appreciation for the help they showed me, make sure you take a look at some of their parts at the very least, visit their website, explore a little bit, see what you are interested in, and quite frankly, just maybe follow on social media. Give them the opportunity to show you what they're made of, because they showed me what they're made of, and it's the good stuff. It's the good stuff. I'm not gonna ask if you liked this video. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't, but I'm gonna encourage you, if you do love drone content, shot by drones, about drones, and for drone pilots, my friend, this channel is for you. Make sure you hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. While you're at it, hit the bell icon too. You'll get a notification every time I post a new video. Until next time, I'm Chris the Drone Geek. I'm out of here. See you guys.
Yo, what you say? Steady screaming, YOLO.